we discuss? We discussed the fact that you've got to have professional demeanor. You want to have professional demeanor. You want to make sure that you're profiling, you have a personal relationship and a contact, you're using a cover letter and a worksheet, and you've got your professional protocols and your courtesies. Now, obviously, as you can tell from the amount of time which I've spent on marketing, the lesser time that I spent on conversion, and the very brief period of time that I spent on this, that's pretty much the relationship in terms of the actual accent that we would want to put on the importance of each one of those things. As I indicated to you before, without marketing, nothing happens. Without a successful formula, once again on the flow chart, don't worry about 2 through 11. So the marketing becomes most important. Secondly, you obviously have to make sure that your conversion technique is there, but I'll tell you what, I would much rather you be less efficient or less effective at conversion than less efficient at marketing. Because at least if you're less effective at conversion, you can make that up with numbers. If I'm real good at marketing, it might take me 20 or 30 qualified prospects to get one client or customer, but at least I'm bringing 20 or 30 prospects to the table. In conversion, I can be real good, but if I don't know anything about marketing, or if I'm not doing anything appropriately in marketing, I've only got 1 or 2 or 3 prospects, I better be awfully accurate with respect to the effectiveness for that on a conversion basis. So marketing comes first all the time. Conversion comes second. And then third, of course, funding. But you know, you have to be substantially brain dead to blow this one. But I mean, because I mean, you know, look at it. We give you a directory. You don't even have to go out and find these guys. We give you a directory that not only has them all, but also has all of the buying parameters for them too. So literally, the only thing that I have to say is just be a mensch. I mean, be a human being. Just allow yourself to treat them with respect and with the types of courtesies that you would expect to be treated with, and a couple common sense rules, and you have yourself all the money that you need from this point on as to any deals that you bring to the table. Now, let me summarize everything that we've talked about, starting from good morning. All right? Let's go through it. We talked about, first of all, of course, developing a marketing plan. What does the marketing plan do? What the marketing plan does is it allows you to zero in on the particular target that you're going after. And once you've been able to zero in on that target, you get your focus, you get your niche, and you do it in the most efficient way possible so that, what? So that you don't have to spend a lot of extra time finding these prospects because you know exactly how to do it. Number 2, we then say there is a very specific formula for conversion. And that formula, once applied, allows you to be effective at increasing the percentage of those prospects that you're actually going to create as clients or as customers of you. And 3, bring to the table through your funding plan the funding sources that will allow you to do those deals over and over and over again. Now, here's the deal. Here's the issue. From that point on, there are only 2 issues attached. One is the issue of effectiveness. The other is the issue of volume. Effectiveness first, volume second. Here's what I mean. Many times, I actually prefer part-time work when somebody gets involved in the cash flow industry to full-time, because on a full-time basis, what the tendency is to want to do is to step on the gas before you've gotten your effectiveness down. And I would much rather, from a part-timer, that you work on effectiveness first, then you get your volume. You know, it's kind of like in tennis, for example. It's sort of like, let's first of all understand how to stroke, then we'll increase the speed of the ball. But let's make sure that our form is there first. Let's get the form down. Get the form down. Once the form is down, now I'll start working on strength. Now I'll start working on speed of the ball. Had a letter the other day from a fellow, and I was mentioning it at the break. The guy worked at and came with, I mean, crystal, just beautiful credentials. I suppose if there are beautiful credentials for this industry, right? But he had worked for like 12 years, 14 years for Barclays Bank in London. And he had some other type of business which he had operated for like 4 years. Got involved in this business full time. And he goes out, he buys a computer, and he says he was intent on making it from day one. So he goes out, he buys a computer, he outfits an office, furniture, the whole bit, spends however much money, I mean, you know, $10,000, $11,000 to do this thing. And he starts mass mailings to whole categories. And the comment that I mentioned in the break is, and he also started to send letters to 3,000 banks. 3,000 banks and started to follow up on the banks because he figured that as an ex-Barclays Bank officer that he would have a natural, sort of affiliation or affinity with these people. So based on all of that, he goes out there and he does this thing for like 7 or 8 months with 0 results. I think he actually got 1 client. That's right, he got 1 client, but a very small fee in the factoring field. And my comment to him when I'm talking about it was, I appreciate the ambition. I appreciate your desire to want to be successful from day one. But first and foremost, get your effectiveness down. Then you can go step on it. So my suggestion to you is exactly the same thing. I mean, what he would have been better off doing is not 3,000 banks. He would have been better off focusing on 50 banks. He focused on 50 banks, develops the relationship with 50 banks, develops referral sources from 50 banks, makes sure that he understands his conversion points, makes sure that he's personally scripted himself. Then when he's ready, then you roll out. Then you start stepping on the gas. So effectiveness to me is an issue which has to do 100% with what I described earlier as the relationship between marketing and conversion dollars out and revenue coming in. That's what I mean by effectiveness. So when it comes down to time or money, what you're looking at is if I spend $500, I'm looking to be able to bring in $1,500 at least. In other words, it should be at least a 3-for-1 relationship. If I'm spending $1,000, I want to be able to be bringing in $3,000 over the course of whatever that client or that customer is producing. It's a positive relationship. Now, once I've developed that positive relationship, now, man, step on the gas. You want to quit your job at that point? Feel free. You want to go out there and just do it twice as hard as you were doing it before? That's okay. But now that you've got the effectiveness down, the volume becomes natural and easy because you've got your stroke down. You know how to hit the ball. So effectiveness first, volume second. Now let's focus on the spotlight for effectiveness. Effectiveness, therefore, has the 2 components attached to it, right? The first component is marketing. The second component is conversion. So if you're looking at the effectiveness issue here, it will be one of those 2 things if there's anything wrong at all. When I said earlier, the good news is that there are only 2 critical elements, 2 core processes to this business, what I meant to say is it is a very good news indeed. I mean, look at it. Do you need capital? No. You need capital, but it doesn't have to be yours. Do you need equipment? No. Do you need office furniture? No. Do you need an office, warehouse? No. Inventory? No. Employees? No. All of the common trappings for business you don't need in the cash flow industry. That's the great news. It boils down to 2 things, marketing and conversion. And I suppose it's funding as a core process, but I don't really see that as critical because you've got the directory and you've got the buying parameters. So it's marketing and conversion that you focus on. Because of that, let me tell you the even better news. The better news is if you have a problem, you know where the problem lies. You can identify the problem. How many businesses do you see and have you seen that the business goes out of business, they never know why? It's kind of like restaurants all the time, right? Restaurants in business, 3 months later, the restaurant's out of business. Believe me, I know. I was in the restaurant business. I know. I mean, you never know with a business. And you literally don't know why the business went out of business. I mean, it's like they had good food. It was a nice location. It just didn't work. It didn't click. And you don't even know how to quantify that. The good news is in the cash flow industry, you can quantify it absolutely. You have 2 potential issues, a marketing issue and a conversion issue. And how can you tell if you have a problem? Easy. Count the numbers. It's that easy. Count the numbers. There's nothing personal about it. It's all business. Count the numbers. If I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm doing it for 5 months, and I have 6 prospects, or I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm doing it for 12 months, and I have 3 prospects, I have a marketing problem. It's that simple. Count the numbers. So on the basis of that, if you have a marketing problem, let me share with you my experience. If the numbers tell you that you have a marketing problem, or shall we call it a marketing challenge, it's real easy. If the numbers tell you that you've been working the business for 8 months and you've had 3 prospects, there is 99% of the time one issue, and one issue only. Your prospect category is not defined. It's that simple. If you work this business for 6, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and you have 2, 3, 4 prospects, you have a marketing problem, and the marketing problem is almost all the time that your prospect category is ill-defined. It's either not specifically defined or it's too broad. So we have the Seattle graduate, for example, who is going out there after all small businesses. And her view is, well, Larry, I wanted the broadest market possible, so I'm going after all the small businesses in the greater Seattle area. The problem is that's exactly what she got. All the small business in the Seattle area. She had 3 pages of prospects, 0 qualified. So she had the sewing machine repair right down the block that was doing $80,000 a year. She has the guy that makes a living by mowing lawns and makes $45,000 a year. She has the auto tinting company that does $130,000 a year. Not one of them is qualified. What's your niche? $1 million to $50 million in annual sales. And if you start with a prospect category of all the small businesses in the Seattle area, you're going to get all the small businesses in the Seattle area. But you're not going to have a defined category that issues or that is or reflects a qualified prospect base for yourself. So one more time, you count the numbers. If you have a marketing problem, the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to look to your prospect category. Your prospect category will either be ill-defined to start with or way too broad for you to be able to provoke or to pull out those that are qualified prospects for you. What about the reverse? What about if you have a conversion issue? Larry, I'm getting lots of prospects, but no conversions. 99% of the time, the reason that you do not get a conversion if you have a prospect is because you have not specifically answered the question, what's in it for them? Almost all the time. See, if I don't know what's in it for you, then I have no way to provoke a conversion. And therefore, if I'm not provoking conversions, by definition, it's because I don't know what's in it for you. So it's a self-auditing function, and that's the good news of this. I mean, literally, there is no reason that anybody, there's no reason that everybody in this room today and listening to the video should not be successful in this industry. Because what I've given you here is a 3-pronged plan that is a very disciplined, a very formalistic approach to developing your route to producing prospects, developing conversions, and having a successful outcome. In addition, because of the nature of it, it is quantifiable, you can count the numbers, and you can self-correct and allow yourself to just simply do it. Now, on that basis, I understand that this is day 5 of the training, and I understand that all of the enthusiasm and energy that you're spinning out and we're prepared to kind of direct out to the future, and then Pino comes along and says, no, before you go out and do anything, do me a favor, spend 3 hours figuring out where you're going. So it's more disciplined, I know, than you would have expected. It's more formula-based, I know, than you would have expected. But the good news is, it is formula-based. The good news is, there is a formula. Now that's all you have to do is follow it. And for those graduates that do, they make an awful lot of money. And for those graduates that do, they become very successful indeed. Any questions at all before we finish off this section of the business of cash flow?